Hello and welcome to Chess Book Reviews 95. Before we start, can I just say that could you look down below and like and subscribe, please? This is a new channel, kept the old numbering system, but this is a new channel with 6 or 7 members. And I'd like to thank 2 of the founding fathers of this, Sarah Beth Cohen and Grandmaster Keith Arkle. Thank you both for joining. I've got some books, 3 books, American stuff, not all American, but with some emphasis on the USA. Now, this book has been around forever and a day. It's worth pointing out, including the 10 best games of the modern era. It's worth pointing out that Larry Evans, who no longer with us, had a bit of a rough ride in the chess world. He wrote the introductions to Fischer's 60 Memorable Games, and there's an urban myth in circulation that he wrote the book, which he didn't. But I'm sure he made some technical observations to Bobby, who got on reasonably well with him, as one American to another, perhaps. He did write some pretty sloppy stuff towards the end of his life, a big book, black, called The Chess Beat, which was photocopies, little more, I'm afraid, of his chess columns. Nothing wrong with that, but it did contain a number of technical mistakes which could have been perhaps corrected and should have been changed. Now, this book is a Faber, and it came out in 1971, which, as we both know, is a very, very long time ago. It deals with various aspects, none of them particularly being taken seriously by him beyond a certain point. In other words, it doesn't belittle chess, but it takes it with a lighter touch. And that's rather nice. I mean, you don't have to. So if in case you don't know where the pieces go or what they're called, there you are. The knight, equivalent to the cavalry of the chessboard. This piece is a brave, prancing charger in the heat of battle. The horse in Sanskrit chess moved precisely the same way to mimic that animal's prancing, oblique quality and ability to vault obstacles. That's quite poetic, isn't it? The piece easily became transformed from a horse to a horseman, a knight. In medieval Germany, it was known as Ritter, rider. But in modern German, it became Springer, jumper. On most sets, the knight has a mane, and the line from its nose to the tip of its ear, representing the way it moves, is a right angle. I wouldn't have thought of that. That's very interesting. And he talks about the other pieces. I won't read them all out, but nevertheless, there's a bit of background, and not something I would necessarily have known. He's talking about the stages of play: occupy the center, attack, and watch the center. In other words, don't necessarily have to rush into it, but you have to be aware of it. It defines various openings. Once again, this could be handy for you. There's another kind of defense, which I like to play these days, and the birds, which I don't like to play these days, and never have. And it runs through various openings and defenses. Chapter 5 is called The Lion's Mouth, and it shows how quickly chess can end and triumph and defeat, as we all know. Who doesn't know that? He quotes MCO 10, which he edited. I think I'm right in saying that Leonard Barden was offered to do it, but Leonard thought it best if it went to a grandmaster. And Lowry came forward, and Walter Korn, who was the series editor, the founder of a number of editions, probably quite happy to play ball with a fellow American. Something about pawn snatching, in other words, don't. Yes, Punch's advice to those about to wed, don't. Why the exchange Lopez is not a forced win of a pawn. Yes, I played in a junior tournament recently. I think it was an under-8s, and the young man had come all the way from the Channel Islands. It's unbelievable, but he had to play in the tournament. And in the last round, he wouldn't otherwise have had a game, so they paired him against me. And he took on C6 and then on E5, thinking he'd won a pawn, and I won it back again. Talking about various counter gambits, and here we are talking about the Evergreen Party. I think you'll find there's a party. This is rather well known. You recognize that position? I think you do. I think you do. Prophylaxis, preventative moves. It's an interesting little thing talking about the Lopez. I mean, here we are 60 pages into the book. And I've been playing chess for nearly 60 years, and I would struggle not to understand what he's talking about, but to necessarily reproduce it without him some guidance. That's what I'm trying to say, some guidance. And this is what he offers, and it's fairly gentle stuff, relaxed. Black to play, he finds a whopper. Whopper was an ice cream. There we are. I hope you can see that position. In chapter 11, if thine eye offends thee, a biblical quotation. Pluck it out. No. Some life and death. These are rather good, I think. I haven't been through these. Some life and death struggles. I'm talking about Darga there. It's just been come up that he is 90 years old. West German player. Never at the heart, at the top of the game, but grandmaster for many, many years and respected as such. Some very well chosen examples, I think, by Evans. He wrote some lovely stuff in it as a young man. And he came to England a couple of times, I think, along with Bisgaya. They came in the early 1950s, just after the war. And they caused quite a stir. Bisgaya came back to Hastings and also played in Birmingham, where he lost an upsetting game for him against Tony Miles. He said he only just got off the aircraft and he was a bit party pooped. You know, the time difference and all that. You probably didn't realise how good Tony Miles was. I don't think anybody did at that stage. Learn from the masters. Don't you agree that it would be particularly instructive if you could annotate one of your games using a stream of consciousness so that a duffer like me could gain some insight into how a master thinks? That's the question posed by the hypothetical reader, Swamim. And then it says, yes, for purposes of instruction, and it goes on to explain the logic behind the moves. Heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. A quote from Keats. It was one of his games from 1950, when all was possible. Every single move, look at this, is annotated with loving care. Would you get that nowadays? You might, but I can't think offhand where I would look for it. Do that. Skipping over some pages. Yes, there's a lot of good stuff in this book, more than I'd realised. Why was Tal afraid? This is also, why did Tal tremble? This is something I know the Welsh international Paul Lamford had some fun with, and also Peter Sauray, I think. Knight takes f7. Knight takes pawn, as they would call it here. And then I think suppose Queen h5 check. Attack and defense. Chapter about Tal. Talking about poor old Weaver Adams. Yes. That's interesting. In the Dracula Frankenstein, instead of taking, he played d4. Random. Better 50 years of Europe than a cycle of Cathay. Like it or not, we must learn to live with progress. Not the equal of that, but nevertheless, somebody listening to this will be. Evans was ever eloquent. He quotes D.H. Lawrence. You don't get many chess books mention D.H. Lawrence, do you? Annotations, sacred and profane. A good annotator does not glance at the outcome of the game and then hyperbolize the winner's every maneuver. What a bet about that. Proving with geometric precision that the latter could do no wrong. And here we are. A game of his again from the happy years of 1951 against Count Alberic O'Kelly de Galway. A King's Gambit. Bishop c4. And not an immediate knight f3, as enjoyed by Bobby Fish. When you have faith in an annotator, accompanying him can be an exciting adventure, but this makes demands on the reader is not without its hazards. In other words, chess is not an easy game. Midnight Oil, chapter 25. How often do you adjourn games? Well, nowadays, never, because of the faster and faster the clock games. In case you're wondering what an adjournment is, it's when the two players would break off the game before it was over, and one player would probably put his score sheet, having written down what his next move is, but not played it on the board, and his opponent would put his write down the clock times and everything, so the position can be reconstructed accurately, exactly, put them in an envelope, and it would be taken away by the organizer and given back to them when they resumed the game, maybe having had lunch or something like that, or even the next day. Some far more advanced stuff here from Evans. Positions from international play. Discussion of middle game complications. His game against Mark Taimanov, maybe that should be. Maybe it shouldn't. Truth is, I don't know. Yes, there's some lovely stuff here. It really is interesting. A gentle glossary. Algebraic notation. Amateur chess player. One who plays chess only for money. Amateur chess player. One who plays chess only for money. Well, what's a professional chess player then? One who plays chess and always comes to last. Professional chess player, one who cannot make a living by playing chess. I can't help thinking this is ribald whimsy, isn't it, in the manner of Dorothy Parker or some such. Chess, a nice and abstruse game in which two sets of puppets are moving in opposition to each other, from Samuel Johnson's dictionary. Let's see. What do you consider the greatest games of chess of the modern era? And he gives Tal Smyslov and the 59 candidates, Lutikov, Klavins, I don't know that, Robert Burns' game against Fischer. Don't forget that's not the one against Donald Byrne from 56. Holmov. And if my friend Stuart Knox is watching, which he isn't, he would ask me to call it Holmov, Bronstein, Robert Byrne against Larry Evans. And so it continues. And then there's a bibliography. Good books, I'm sure. Got most of these, but not all. And there we are. A Forgotten Gem. Chess questions answered by Larry Evans. The next book is a great friend of mine. Again, you may not know it. It's not recent. The Chess Player's Bedside Book, edited by Raymond Edwards and Raymond Keane. Ray Edwards had dealings with the British Chess Magazine, as did I, but we don't really know each other. We were in and out the door at different times, and it's a very nice book with a selection of reprints from other magazines and books and stuff, but also some original content. You might see the two little chess pawns lassoing the knight. I wish there were more books like this, but there simply aren't. This one was general editor Bob Wade and technical editor Kevin O'Connell. We have much fun in compiling the Chess Player's Bedside Book. Yes, and 50 years later, we're still reading it with pleasure. So thank you, Ray Edwards, and thank you, Ray Keane. Explains various technical terms, which is always useful, isn't it? And here we have Eddie Gufeld, a much maligned person, I think, as much because he ate too much, like I do, but also because I think he was KGB, I'm not sure. Anyway, he explains when he's coaching some girls and the fun they had, the fun he had. Retrospectively, I think at the time he was tearing his hair out because the girls were playing all the wrong moves. World champions I have met. Oh, here's a good cartoon for you. I always like to show the cartoons, don't I? There's a big chessboard. Yeah, that's what you call interaction. See that? They're sitting either side of the enormous board, about as big as a football pitch. Harry Golombek reminiscing here. World champions I have met. I lost and had to be content with the meagre consolation of seeing the game subsequently quoted as a copybook example of Queenside minority pawn attack. There was about Capablanca an aura of invincibility that is difficult to put into words. When he was playing in the London International Tournament of 1922, Webster, an excellent cartoonist of the time, paid a visit to the event, portrayed all the masters in sure, recognisable hand in one of the London evening newspapers. I cut the piece out and pasting it into a scrapbook, which I still possess. There is Capablanca, to the life, a little younger than when I saw him at the later years, but as though to reinforce my idea about Kappa and his aura, the artist has dotted a ring around his head. That was exactly that. He was an astute observer, had also noticed his invincible aura, even though he knew little or nothing. Here's a picture of Korchnoi, dressed up as the devil. There he is, with horns. An article by Wolfgang Heidenfeld, possibly from South African, before he went to Ireland, publication. He's talking about people not wanting to exchange queens, but to keep them on to have more attacking chances, and I plead guilty to this. I like to keep queens on. CJ Feather talking about fairy chess. The next time you sit down to the board, you end up with this sort of thing here, with all the queens on. You'll feel light as a feather. Appreciation of Willowbrea by Kevin O'Connell. Jimmy Adams has now rectified this, and there is an enormous book about Brea. I'm not sure if I've mentioned that before in these chinwags, but if I haven't, at some point I will. But O'Connell summarizes Brea's career and shows some games with loving annotations, really interesting. Some quotations here. Andrew Soltis, enough. I've read 11 books, 37 magazine articles, 143 newspaper profiles, and assorted other chess biographies, press biographies, analysing the gossip and from the gossip columns dealing with one Robert J. Fisher. And that's enough. There's also too much written about Morphy's madness, Marshall's drinking, Pillsbury's illness, and Rubin Fine's psychological observations. That may be true. Major James Moore Hannum. He's the one Tartakova mentions, doesn't he? You know, the Hannum variation in the Philidor with knight d7 and c6 and queen c7, which played it in a 5-minute game. And yes, I lost. Okay, you don't make it worse for me. Anyway, I can't go through all this, but it's rather good. Picture of Bobby with a girl at Reykjavik. She didn't become Mrs. Fish, I'm afraid, but there we are. Pictures of the English team at Bath. Various people of notoriety and fame. Some of them no longer with us. And there's Yana, who is still with us, but is now called Dr. Bellin. An article by Gligerich. How about that? The art of sudden crisis. Svetozar Gligerich. And Svetozar means, as a very, very learned colleague told me, it means light of the world. Yeah, I didn't know that. An article by one of the authors, compositors, Raymond Edwards. And an article by Hans Bohm, a very aggressive Dutch IM who doesn't play very much, who never did, I don't think, play that much. But he certainly packed a punch when he did. Some answers to the problems and studies and puzzles. And there we are. I've gone far too fast through that, but it's a very good book. If you see it around, get it. I've got at least one spare copy of it, so get in contact with me if you'd like one. I'll see if we can sort out some pocket money price for it. The last book, which I'm going to whiz through, is From Morphy to Fischer, A History of the World Chess Championships by Al Horowitz. This book came out just after, I think, Bobby won the World Championship in 1972. Let's see. It's a Batsford. This was 1973. Deals with Steinitz, breezes all the way through. Capablanca, of course, Alekhine. Lasker playing Steinitz. Don't you just love it? Some unannotated games. Americans are a little bit more prone to this than the English. As you can see, to go all the way through that here would make the day just that little bit harder. Botvinnik Tau. Fischer playing Rubinetti. 1970 interzonal. I didn't say it. Interzonal. There we are, I said it. Petrosian and Spassky in 66 and 69. There we are. Boris Spassky and the Advent. Where would we have been without him? Where would we have been? There we are. Not the world's best book, but because I didn't get it at the time, and I'm surprised I didn't. Nice to have it now. So I'm looking at it, I hope, with fresh eyes, not too jaundiced. Well, thank you very much. Those are 3 books you might have enjoyed. Please like and subscribe down below. I'm James Pratt. Thank you for your time. Goodbye.